What's good, everyone? Anderson Emerald here, and today we're diving into Athlos. So I want to talk about Athlos, which will be going down this Thursday on October 9th, as well as on Friday, October 10th in New York City. Of course, I'm going to be there in attendance for both, the Thursday and the Friday, just like last year. But just wanted to dive into a few things today. First off, just like, what is it? What happened last year? What's going to happen this year? What might be different? Who's actually running? So I'll slightly dive into that. And then the future for Athlos and this whole league that they are looking at creating. Now, myself and Coach Rob, you already recorded, a whole video and kind of breakdown of different things. So definitely be sure to check that out. But I'm going to dive into just some initial thoughts because, again, I'm going to be on the ground, getting coverage and stuff for Sidious Mag. So let's just quickly dive in. Athlos NYC. This is the all women's league created by Alexis Ohanian, started in 2024, and it was spearheaded by Alexis, who is the, founder of Reddit. He's, of course, married to Serena Williams. He's, very, very wealthy investor, and he's been a prominent person in, I guess, like various different spaces, and he chose to dip his toes into the track and field world and start up an all women's league. Now, last year, what we saw in 2024 came in the form of, Gabby Thomas being the headliner. We saw Faith Kipyegon. We saw Marie-José Talu, Brittany Brown, Jasmine Camacho Quinn, Masai Russell, all of these like really, really big names and stars, competing in New York City. Under the lights, we saw Megan Thee Stallion performing, as a kind of post-race concert or whatever it may be. And they really brought a lot of energy to New York City. Again, it was only one day of a meet, and it came at the end of the season. So this was after the Olympic Games. It was after the Diamond League. I remember I was in Paris for the Olympics. I went to Europe for the Diamond League, and then I came back and, here in New York City, I went to Athlos. It was a party. All the athletes loved Athlos. All the women, of course, they felt like respected. They felt like almost like celebrities. They felt like queens, like all of that. They were getting these Tiffany crowns. Like, it was amazing things. There was a ton of celebrities there, and obviously if you're working with, or if this is Alexis Ohanian, who's again a very wealthy person who is has his toes and his hands in different spaces, investing in different areas, and now he's choosing to put his toes into the track and field world. Of course, it's going to be a very, very big show, and of course ended off with Meg Thee Stallion at the end of the night. So overall, I think as a one-off meet in 2024, it was amazing. Like, honestly, it was amazing. Obviously, it was kind of, it was kind of chilly. I don't know. It was like the end of September. It's kind of chilly. And that does lead me to 2025, right? Now, we're going to have essentially the same situation, a few add-ons, but a one-off meet. Now it's going to be October 10th. And I'm going to be honest, I'm going to like do this just now. Just checking the weather for October 10th on Friday. It's going to be 64 degrees here in New York City. On Thursday, it's going to be 61 degrees here in New York City. It's going to be kind of chilly, and we're talking about at night. If I'm looking at night at whatever this goes off on at like 8 p.m. or something like that, or 7 p.m., or whatever, 5 p.m., it's going to be, 60 degrees, and then it's just going to get colder and colder. Obviously, that's an issue, but regardless of the actual weather and all that, I think this is going to be another high quality one-off meet that Alexis and Athlos are putting on in New York City. You're going to have some of the top names that we saw last year, whether that's Brittany Brown, who won the 200, Marie-José Talu Smith, who won the 100, Faith Kipyegon, who won the 15, right? Like, all these athletes, Marlita Paulino from the 400, they're going to be back, they're going to be competing, and they're going to be some of the top stars to look out for. Now, of course, there are some names who are missing, whether that's a Gabby Thomas, who got injured right before USA's, qualified for the World Championship team, but pulled out of Worlds in Tokyo due to the Achilles injury. So she's not going to be competing here. Melissa Jefferson-Wooden, who arguably had she had one of the greatest seasons for a sprinter in the history of track and field in 2025, coming off the sprint triple at the World Championships, 100 meter, 200 meter world leads and all that. She's not going to be competing at Athlos. I don't think it's like injury, but maybe she just had a long season. And again, we're all the way in October, so it's been a long season for her. Also, Sha'carri Richardson, I'll talk about her in a second. You don't have like Sydney McLaughlin-Vroni. There's a bunch of different athletes you don't have. Check out the video myself and Coach Rob we did on the finish line. We kind of dove a little bit more into that. But you also do have the long jump occurring on Thursday, which is what I was noting on October 9th. That's going to be pretty interesting because you're going to have Tara Davis-Woodhall headlining the long jump and, competing there with, Quanisha Burks, with Jasmine Moore, with Claire Bryant. You have Monet Nichols. You have, a ton of top jumpers who are going to be competing in Times Square. This is in the middle of Times Square, free to the public, open to the public. I'm not even sure like what the setup is going to be. If you've ever been to Times Square, what I'm assuming potentially is you have like these big red steps. Maybe it's going to be right there where you'll have the long jump and then kind of everyone will be around. Maybe, but this is a very, very big deal. Again, we're working with Alexis Ohanian, who is able to invest in and put something like this, something spectacular like this on. We're talking about Times Square. We're not talking about the middle of the street in somewhere out. Like, this is Times Square in New York City. Listen, he's getting it done. So that's going to be pretty exciting. And then on the Friday, we're going to see the regular meet with 100, 200, 400, hurdles, 800, 1500. And then it's going to be capped off with a performance by Ciara. And I think Ciara just like dropped an album or something like that. So, you know, similar to like Meg Thee Stallion last year, you know, at least now, I mean, I don't know. I grew up, you know, Ciara was coming up when I was like really, really young. And obviously she's not like the Ciara of old, but I don't know. I guess she's pretty popular now. I'll be honest. I don't listen to Ciara like that anymore, but it is what it is. So this should be a pretty exciting, in my opinion, one-off meet that will kind of cap things off for the year. Some of the names, like I already mentioned, you'll see some of the similar top names. Again, check out me and Coach Rob. We kind of broke down the different fields on the finish line, so definitely check that video out. But the other thing to take a look at is the future. So I enjoyed last year. I really enjoy. I hope, you know, I'm going to enjoy this year, especially considering we'll have the long jump in Times Square and then we'll have the one-off meet on Friday as well. But the future is going to be very interesting for Athlos, because as we look into 2026, this is where they're going to be doing something very, very different. This time, they're actually going to be putting on a league for women to compete in at the end of the season. So on the Athlos website, which I'll take a look at, they do have league, but they don't have many details to kind of go off of. I'm going to circle back to, you know, the article in Citius Mag, which has it outlined a little bit more. But league arriving in 2026, build, empower the modern athlete, et cetera, et cetera. Athlos League format will introduce a team-based competition with a historic athlete advisor ownership model arriving in 2026. Athlete ownership advisor model. So you're, I'm not going to play the video, but you're taking a look at Sha'carri Richardson. You also have Tara Davis-Woodhall, and you have Gabby Thomas. So these are the three, and these are obviously their silhouettes, but these are the three kind of athlete advisors and owners who are going to be, I guess, spearheading along with Alexis Ohanian and Athlos, the league in 2026. So the website doesn't give many like clear specific details. I'm just going to circle to the Citius Mag article when this was announced in May 2025, earlier this year. And here, shout out to Chris Chavez. So he breaks down, it says, Athlos, the women's only track meet started by Reddit co-founder Alexis Ohanian, will be expanding to a team-based women's track and field league with multiple meets in 2026. So like I said, you have Sha'carri, you have Gabby, you have Tara. They will serve as athlete advisor owners for this league. Whatever that actually means, we don't exactly know. Maybe we'll find out more information on what their specific duties will be, you know, as they kind of go forward. But it's an interesting kind of aspect here. So it does say, quote, Gabby, Sha'carri, and Tara will represent a new generation of athletes who have put this sport on their shoulders and deserve to be compensated for being the standard bearers. We have focused on bringing them into the league as founding owners to ensure we're building a league that our athletes will love. So maybe literally as advisor owners, they'll be giving input into things that they want to see in this league format. So as this league is being built, Gabby, Sha'carri, Tara, they're going to be giving insights in, you know, what they would like to see. That's an interesting aspect. I'll kind of circle back to that in a second. But a couple things. Athlos says it will shift to a team-based model, so outside of just the individual meet that they had in 2024 and 2025. And it will have multiple meets in different cities after the conclusion of the World Athletics season. So this is very, very interesting because, as the article continues, the 2026 season will end with the World Athletics Ultimate Championships on September 11th to 13th in Budapest, Hungary. Now, not all events will be featured at the Ultimate Championship, so that's for World Athletics. But here it says Athlos will also feature one final championship event. So based on what this is saying is that after the Ultimate Championships are done in September, Athlos is now going to jump in and they're going to put together multiple meets in different cities in tandem, or not in tandem, but all before coming to a championship. So in theory, this could be two meets. Maybe it's one in New York City, one in Los Angeles. I'm just hypothetical, right? I don't know. And then you have a championship. So two, quote unquote, in-season league meets and then one championship meet. And this is all I guess, late September, October, November, whatever it may be. Or I don't know if it's going to be just 2 meets. Maybe you have 3 or 4 meets, and then it caps off with the championship as the 5th meet, right? So that's going to be very interesting. As they kind of continue, there's a couple other details, right? The professional track and field calendar in 2025 was primarily occupied by the addition of 4 Grand Slam track meets in April to June. So along with the Diamond League, et cetera, Continental Tour. So, and it says here, it can be challenging to find space on the calendar for a multi-leg series. And this is kind of one of my first kind of questions that I have about Athlos in 2026. This is nothing to say about what's occurring this year in 2025. I'm excited. This is a meet that we get to see at the end of the season where some of the top athletes compete at. But when we're talking about a league next year with multiple meets coming after, you know, a full season has already gone down, and we're talking about September, October, November, where, you know, I'm already saying like it's going to be kind of chilly. This means that athletes are going to have to really extend their seasons out longer than they might have in previous years. And if Athlos does choose to continue, then in 2027, the World Championships is also mid-September, right? That's how the Worlds are going to be for you know, the rest of history at this point. And if we're going to have Athlos as a league, it's going to be happening at the very end of the year. We have to think about how athletes have kind of structured their seasons in general, where they're competing indoors, outdoors, and then they get to a championships before they even think about kind of postseason things. So are they going to shift their training drastically to ensure they're ready for something in October? Or are they still just going to focus on what they're doing in, you know, indoors, outdoors, and then whatever they have left, they're just going to, you know, make sure they can, or, you know, do their best to see what they can do when we get to October. Case in point, and this was just a one-off situation, but remember last year, Gabby Thomas was the Olympic champion, but she finished second place. She got ran down by Brittany Brown at Athlos. Now, obviously, that was a very, very big moment for Brittany, and in my opinion, that really like increased her stardom. I mean, if you follow track and field, you've known her since, you know, 2018 when she was at Iowa, but 2019 when she got a medal at World Champs. But Gabby Thomas was still the Olympic champion, right? Gabby Thomas was still capitalizing off of what she did at the Olympic Games, and Athlos was just, you know, one stop on her 2024 season, right? Even this year, Melissa Jefferson-Wooden dominated 2025, but she chose to pull out of Athlos. Yes, she's going to be there in New York City, but I mean, she's not competing. So what does that say to her priorities in terms of what she deems very, very important in terms of her track and field calendar? Will that be something for 2026 that, you know, she's going to be competing in? Who knows? Again, very end of the season, that's going to be one thing that's very, very tricky when it comes to athletes putting all their focus and attention and energy into a league afterwards. Also, the idea of multiple cities. I mean, we have in New York, you know, I guess they'll maybe have a meet in New York City, but where else are they going to go? And are they going to be as grand as they've kind of already set themselves up for? Where we've seen what Athlos last year and this year already are. They already are like preparing the Tiffany crowns, and, you know, they're talking about all the money similar to Grand Slam track. And, you know, I was all on board Grand Slam track. Obviously, post, you know, what happened, we've seen all the things that have unfolded. This is a different situation. Alexis has the money to be able to like fund this, assumingly, right? But this is a whole thing. Like, can they maintain that grand aspect of like what Athlos has displayed itself to be in 2026 in multiple cities, not just, you know, it being in New York? I don't know. We'll see how that actually does pan out. The other thing that's interesting to circle back to the athletes is Gabby Thomas, Sha'carri Richardson, and Tara Davis-Woodhall. They're going to be the 3 kind of like athlete advisors and like part owners, whatever it may be. I guess one question is, are they going to compete in the league? Obviously, Gabby Thomas has competed last year. Tara Davis-Woodhall, she's competing this year. But are they going to be competitors in the actual league? Because all 3 of them are athletes who have kind of almost transcended the sport in different ways, where the general public is more well aware of them as individuals outside of just even their track exploits. So having them compete is, or would be, a very, very, you know, important, if not essential aspect to having the league succeed, as opposed to just having like any athletes compete. But if they are just going to be athlete advisors, are they providing information? I know they're providing basic information for Alexis, who isn't very familiar with track and field, but are they providing information about the structure of a league that they want to see that's going to be sustainable for track and field? And shout out to Coach Rob, right? He speaks about this a lot, but it's different to just say things that you want in track and field versus things that are actually going to be sustainable and actually going to ensure the long-term success of a league, and in this case, Athlos, right? these athletes have never competed in any actual league. These athletes haven't competed in something that they understand as, okay, this works in track and field as a sustainable league, something comparable to other sports. I don't like to compare other sports too much, but just the idea of a league, we only have, basketball, football, et cetera, to kind of compare to. Is that what, Gabby Thomas, Sha'carri Richardson, Tara Davis-Woodhall, is that what they're giving to Alexis Ohanian? Or are they kind of giving input based on what exists in track and field already because that's what they know? I'm not saying any of it is wrong or right, but it's just a fact of life that, this may not be what's necessary for the long-term sustainability of a league if what we're going to build is something that already does exist. So that's one thing to kind of keep in mind. Now, the last thing I'll say is I definitely do have worries in a sense of Athlos being spearheaded simply by Alexis Ohanian, right? I think, especially coming off of what occurred with Grand Slam track, we know that track and field is not generating enough money where we can consistently fund, ventures and meets and things like we've seen with Athlos or like we've seen with Grand Slam track. And I say that in the sense that all these massive payouts, all these, massive gifts, all these like really, really big grand things that are occurring and are being showcased by Athlos and what we saw with Grand Slam track, clearly track and field is not generating enough money to, circle that return back. So is this something that Alexis, who likely is, probably funding this and, putting a lot of money into it, is this something that is going to provide the return for him to see this as a viable, venture to continue year over year, right? Or is it going to get to a point where it's like, okay, this isn't getting the return that I want. I'm probably going to have to start to phase out. This isn't to say anything about Alexis's values or, his intentions or anything like that. It's just a pure financial, thought process of if this is not generating the money that is necessary, then is this something that he's going to continue to actually invest in? Track and field, obviously, I am a die-hard track and field fan. Like through and through, I am never leaving track and field. But also acknowledge, and again, I'm gonna be honest, especially coming off what we saw from Grand Slam track, like I acknowledge the issues. And even, I'm working on some stuff about like the history of like other things we've seen. Like there's a lot of different issues that we got to contend with that there's no one savior that's going to come into track and just like fix everything. So that is something that I do have worries about and have questions about, specifically as we look forward in 2026 and beyond with this league that Athlos is looking to put together. So I don't know. Overall, just some thoughts. I probably spoke way longer than I actually intended to, but definitely check out the finish line that myself and Coach Rob, we recorded speaking about Athlos on a whole. We did a couple kind of videos on it. I'm excited for the meet in 2025. If it's anything like 2026, if it's anything like 2024, but obviously it's going to be better because now we got the long jump, we got Times Square. I know it's going to be really, really good, but I obviously do have questions about 2026. So let me know what you think about Athlos this year, last year, 2026, the future. Let me know what you think. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. Truly do appreciate y'all. Thanks for watching.